You're tuned in to Horror Slop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is Horror Slop. Every night starts somewhere, and this is where yours begins. First story, first chill. Let's see if you make it to the end.
Every month a parade would pass through my hometown, but we were never allowed to look at it, by EAP app. And number X200B. I don't really blame them either. I caught on pretty quickly and realized that they were trying their hardest to forget the memory of Point Pine. Whenever kids at school asked me where I was from, I simply told them I was from a small town that they had never heard of. And number X200B. I also learned early on that any questions about Point Pine would be met with punishments. A few months after we moved to Arizona, my older sister Felicity had a school project about family history. She did it on our life in Point Pine and wrote about some of the things she remembered from there. I said nothing, and from that moment on, neither one of us mentioned Point Pine again. And number X200B. And number X200B. Every year on your birthday, you had to get blood work done. I don't think anyone really knew what the point of this was, or if they were actually looking for something. We just all knew that our birthdays would start off with a trip to the Point Pine labs. And number X200B. Everyone had to be up at 8:13 a.m. There was a system of speakers placed around the town like an amusement park or something, and at 8:13 a.m., without fail, the wailing alarm sound would ricochet through the neighborhoods, waking everybody up. This was followed by parents running to wake up their children and get them out of bed as quickly as possible, like the house was on fire or something. Sometimes I expected it to be. All the Point Pine schools were placed in different areas of the town. Point Pine Elementary was towards the east side, Point Pine Middle School was in the west, Point Pine High was in the dead center of town, and Point Pine University was up on a small hill towards the south. If you hadn't noticed by now, every place in town was named Point Pine /////. The Point Pine Cafe, Point Pine Mall, Point Pine Grocery, etc., etc. Certainly, one of the weirdest things by far that took place in Point Pine was the Point Pine Monthly Parade. And number X200B. And number X200B. And number X200B. Once you heard the first note, you had 5 minutes to get inside a house or a building that had locks on the doors. This might come as a surprise, but in Point Pine, not many buildings contained locks. So, if you happened to be out and about on the street when the singing started, you had about 3 options on the places you could go: one of the schools, the staff break room in the Point Pine bar, or the fridge in the Point Pine pizza shop. One year in the month of August, my friend Lee and I decided that we were going to break the rules and not go inside when the parade passed. Now that I think about it, I'm surprised that kids didn't do this more often, considering that, well, when you tell kids that they must absolutely never do something, they often do that exact thing. And number X200B. Since we didn't know when the parade was coming, where it started, or the exact path that it took around town, we decided the smartest thing to do would be to wait in the forest near the Point Pine Library until the parade eventually came down that street. So, we basically decided to spend about half of the month of August hanging out near or around the library. Around the 3rd week of the month, while we were sitting on the steps of the library talking about some random things that aren't important, we heard the music start. And number X200B. We were crouching in the bushes and leaves when we heard the chorus of voice getting louder and therefore closer. And number X200B. And number X200B. I stopped moving and instead waited for them to get closer, where they were bound to pass right in front of my line of sight. Oh no. Oh crap. Suddenly, Lee dove to the ground, landing in the fetal position, with his head cradled in his hands. And number X200B. And number X200B. And number X200B. And number X200B. You don't want to look at it. Lee replied. And number X200B. I noticed that for the first time in all of the years that I had known him, Lee looked absolutely terrified. And number X200B. And number X200B. Those things, they did something to her. They're eating her, Cody. But she doesn't even care. And number X200B. Don't look. Lee whispered. And number X200B. Look at us, Cody. And number X200B. After that, it moved along and continued its way through town. And number X200B. Once we began to hear everyone come out of their hiding places, I stood up and leaned down to help Lee get up. And number X200B. Once he stood up, he kept his head down. And number X200B. Lee, what's wrong? I asked. Lee. And number X200B. And number X200B. It took my eyes. And number X200B. I will never forget the dark, bleeding holes in Lee's face and the cuts around his skin. I threw up in the forest for a good 3 minutes, before I was able to help lead Lee out of the forest. A few adults saw us and got our parents, who came and got us right away. The day after that, my family moved out of Point Pine. And number X200B. I don't know if Point Pine still exists. I'd like to go check it out again, but even if I knew where it was or how to get there, I don't think I'd ever go back. I have a feeling that I wouldn't exactly get a warm welcome. Although, I can't shake the thought that my parents were somehow still connected to the town, even after all those years.
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah. That's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
His fur was prickly and he smelled like soggy corn chips. He also ate flies, snatching them out of the air like a clumsy frog. Back then, we lived on 5 acres of golden forest. My favorite spot on the property was a hollow inside a wild hedge. It was the perfect hideout. You could only access the hollow by crawling along a hidden trench because the branches formed a thick, dangerous interlock on all sides. I petted him until he fell asleep. Then I crawled out of the hollow and called his name, intending to confuse him. He panicked immediately, yelping and clawing madly at the impenetrable branches. His terror felt like a gut punch. I crawled back into the hedge. The way he looked at me is burned into my memory, wide-eyed and joyfully relieved, but terrified. That look was all I could think of the day I put him to sleep. I didn't have a choice. I'd have him for 18 years, and had medicated severe heart issues for 4 of those. He was in constant pain, so it was time. But he knew something was wrong. He was so scared, and I scared him even more by crying. Tears always terrified him. I tried to push away the memory of that first night in the hedge, of the way I'd scared him. But I couldn't, and no wonder. Putting him to sleep, I'd trapped him again. Only this time, I had to leave him behind. He was my last lifeline. I felt him slipping away as surely as a drowning man feels a wave carry away his life preserver. My crybaby tendencies didn't start or end with my dog. Take my dad. He'd been in a nursing home for years by that point. He developed Alzheimer's early. The descent was brutal and swift. As if that wasn't enough, he had pancreatic cancer, automatically terminal and unimaginably excruciating. I meant to sit with him at the end, when he'd be in a drug-induced sleep so deep he wouldn't notice me holding his hands and sobbing. But I wasn't there when he died. I was at my doctor's office, digesting the news that I, too, was going to be sick for the rest of my life. It was enough. I'd had enough. I tried everything. Nothing worked. I kept searching anyway, trawling increasingly weird websites far into the night because the search itself was addicting. Not a happy place, but certainly a distracting one. A recipe for happiness. Are you tired of feeling bad? Want to cheer up? Well, have I got good news for you. My friend gave me this recipe for happiness that works like a charm. There are 2 parts to the recipe. What followed was a pretty standard honey cake recipe, although the last instructions gave me pause. Mix the ingredients together in a glass bowl, then spit in the mixture. Cook at whatever temperature you want for exactly 20 minutes. Cut in half. Put half outside your door. Eat the other half during. Think of someone who makes you happy. I cut the cake and set half of it on the porch. Tendrils of steam twirled into the darkness, lit pale silver by the full moon. Then I planned a perfect day. Or rather, remembered it. Afterward, we ate brownies and ice cream. Then I settled in for the night and read a book until I fell asleep, with my dog cured at my feet. As I drifted off, smiling at the memory, I swore I could feel him there, warm and surprisingly heavy, sprawling lazily over my toes. When I woke, that warm weight had shifted to my pillow. A terrible, painful hope coursed through me, one I couldn't even acknowledge. Something tiny lay on my pillow in a drying pool of blood. Fuzzy and weirdly dirty, exuding drifting gray filaments that sparkled in the sun. 3 milky eyes glinted over a horror show of a snout, cracked and bleeding, bursting with an improbable cluster of human molars. It blinked, each eye just slightly out of tandem, opening and closing with a soft, wet click, and smiled. Ropes of bloody drool leaked between its teeth. It placed 2 cold paws on my face. Rage inexplicably built in my chest, growing exponentially every second. I wanted to kill it, to plunge my arms elbow deep into its disgusting, distended body, and... "Are you sad?" it asked. "No. You have no sadness." It poked its belly with a ridiculously small hand. "I have it." It took a long, long time, but I finally realized that this absurd abomination hadn't eaten my guts. When I came back, I asked, "What are you?" I decided I'd had a psychotic break, and voluntarily checked myself into a hospital. After 2 days of assessments, they found nothing wrong. Why would they? I was on an even keel, basking in a curiously blank inner peace. When I got home, the monster was in my bed. Jolly, indecent roundness had withered to skeletal proportions. It looked awful. Starved. Over the following days, we developed a routine. I went to work and attended doctor appointments, even visited friends. Then I came home and let the monster extract my negative feelings. Bad client at work. Removed and forgotten before the memory could sink in. Friend who wouldn't make eye contact. What did I care? My pet monster would take care of it like he took care of everything else. After a while, I realized I didn't recognize anybody. I remembered remembering them. But I didn't remember them. I reached a picture of my 10-year-old self cuddling a ragged, homely chihuahua. Ghosts of memories tickled my brain, urging me to remember, urging me to know. And I understood, finally, that I had lost something. I don't know why I cared. I felt so happy. Peaceful. My life was painless. I was great. But I was also selfish. And I didn't like the idea that the monster had taken so much. Where was the line between happiness and emptiness? I didn't want to be empty. I wanted to be full. It took 7 days, but I found the original recipe. At the bottom of the page was another entry. If you're really dumb, you can undo happiness. Sad face, you shouldn't, but it's up to you. So here. Cut your hand and drip your blood into the batter. Cook the cake as instructed above. Give half to your happiness, and eat the other half. Remember the happy memory you meditated on. Remember your perfect day. Choose one to forget, or choose to never be happy again. Or better yet, don't kill your happiness in the first place. I agonized for days. My monster, my happiness, my joy, continued to drain my pain, uncertainty, and fear. He quickly grew to 3 times his size. Finally, I made my decision. So I followed the recipe, sweet honey cake, poisoned with blood instead of saliva. Then I cut it in half and brought it to my monster. I placed the cake delicately on its tongue. It chewed eagerly, and shrank. Fat, firm sides caved, ragged rolls of empty flesh falling against its bones. I could only lay there and hurt. The recipe writer was right. I suffer every day, more than I did before. Like the universe is punishing me for those few months of stolen peace. It's bad. So bad that sometimes I think I made the wrong choice. And even though I hurt, I am okay.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine, stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
Instructions for the Babysitter, by C.R. Jones. I've only been babysitting for about 6 months now. It was an easy way to make money and it didn't require me to have any real, applicable skills. It was slow going at first, but a couple of months ago I hit the jackpot after a young couple from the rich part of my town asked me to look after their 2 kids one Friday night. They paid me $200 to look after their extremely well-behaved children for 3 hours in a house 5 times the size of mine. It was awesome. A couple of days ago a husband and wife had texted me asking if I could stay the night at their mansion and watch their 7-year-old little girl for them. I happily agreed. Out of all the houses I've babysat at, this was hands down the most gorgeous one I've ever seen. It was a huge Victorian-style mansion that was covered in dark brown bricks, making it blend perfectly into the woods surrounding it. The couple seemed very anxious to leave, and even though they were both gorgeous people, I could tell that underneath all of their beauty they were both extremely tired and haggard from having to keep up with their 7-year-old. They were obviously very excited about having an entire night to themselves and couldn't wait to get out of there as fast as they could. I gave the instructions a quick once-over before folding the papers and stuffing them into my back pocket. I'll look at them later, I told myself. How stupid I was to do that. Mr. and Mrs. Collins' daughter, Samantha, was a very nice, young girl who warmed up to me almost immediately, and we had spent the next few hours playing games and watching TV. After we finished our 5th episode of Teen Titans Go, I noticed that it was getting late and asked Samantha what her bedtime was. She shrugged, not really giving me an answer, which is when I remembered Mrs. Collins' instructions. Well, it looks like your bedtime is right now. I said, lift Samantha up off the couch so I could get her ready. She brushed her teeth and I tucked her into her California king-sized mattress. I told her good night and was leaving her room when she said something that stopped me in my tracks. I stopped walking and turned back around toward her, confused. What do you mean, don't forget to lock your door? I asked. Why would I need to lock your door? What if you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night? She looked at me innocently and shrugged her shoulders again. I don't know, but Mommy always locks my door before I go to sleep. She says she does it to protect me and herself. I don't remember what happens after I fall asleep, but Mommy says that I always try to leave my room at night, which is bad thing. Mommy told me that she would leave instructions for you to follow, and locking my door is one of them, she said. Hello, Annie. 4. Now this next part is very important. You will be sleeping in our guest room upstairs for the night. Before you go to bed, make sure that you leave a plate outside your bedroom door with a piece of raw steak on it. You can find the raw steak in our refrigerator, and leave a glass of milk next to the plate as well. On a piece of paper write the words, Park Aunt Mihi, in red ink, and leave it on the plate with the raw meat. Also, at some point during the night you might wake up and notice that there is something standing in the corner of your room. Please refrain from looking at the figure as much as you can. I'd recommend wearing earbuds so that you won't hear it muttering to itself. And that's about it. There are also a few other general rules that you should follow throughout the night just to make sure that nothing bad happens. Rule 2. If you feel something tap you on the shoulder at any point during the night, don't turn around, and wait at least 30 seconds before moving again. P.S. Throughout the night you might hear a dog whimpering from somewhere off inside the house. We don't have a dog, so don't go looking for it.
That last one tasted like fear and poor decisions. Let's see what the next bite stirs. Hope you're hungry.
To whoever is reading this, you probably don't know who I am, but I'm sorry for what I've done to you. This will probably never make it to the public, but my guilt is eating away at me, and I feel like I'm out of options. The least I could do is get this out there, so that maybe, hopefully, someone reads this, and more unlikely, takes this seriously. That way, I'm not one of the few who know just how bad we messed up, and what we've done to the world. I'm sure this'll read like some nutjob's manifesto, but please, hear me out. I think I've helped link our world to something else out there, and if humanity isn't careful, we're going to open a door and invite something to Earth that I'm pretty sure will end us in the blink of an eye. I know that's a lot, so let me backtrack. // Day 1. You'd think that after spending days in sand-swept dunes, or remote, ancient locations, you'd get tired of it. But here I am, writing from a tent, just outside of a recently excavated tomb that they found here in Gilf Kabir. I'll admit, I'm a little apprehensive. While the door to the tomb is fascinating, I'll get to that in a minute, I don't know how anyone would have found this thing in the first place. There was no tomb marker, no statues, Absolutely nothing built into or around this plateau that would indicate a tomb was hidden here. If these guys weren't using some of the latest seismic tools to map out the land, there's no telling how much longer this thing would have stayed buried. I can understand, too, their eagerness to excavate and unearth this find. It's rare to get to see an untouched tomb nowadays, especially one so isolated from any others on the map. It makes me wonder if there's a whole cache of hidden tombs, just waiting to be uncovered, and share their history. Exciting. So, back to the door. It's massive. 20 feet or so slabs of deep black granite is my guess, from what they've uncovered so far. They're still whittling away at the rocks surrounding it, but the glimpses I see are still incredible nonetheless. It goes without saying, but I'm most fascinated by the writing on the doors. Every single inch of the stone uncovered so far has dense lines of script, like the Rosetta Stone. It's weathered to all hell, but I can identify some hieroglyphs, as well as ancient Greek. I can't make out full sentences yet, but from what I got so far, I can see something about a key, or an origin of some sort, and something about riches. The guys seem to work a little faster after I plucked that word. In any case, we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but this seems promising. Day 8. I don't know who Frank is. I wrote about him on day 5, but I have no idea why I wrote that. I've asked the whole camp, and they assure me that it's always been us 5, not 6. Everyone's drawing a collective blank on what happened the day we tried to open the tomb. Everything in our brains tells us it's stupid to try again, but at the same time, when we sit in silence, checking our gear, the collective desire to try again is palpable. This isn't a group so easily willing to give up. Rick seems to be in the same boat, saying that we'll try again tomorrow. Something keeps bothering me. Everyone assures me that it's always been us 5. Why, then, did we set up an extra, empty cot then? Why do we have a bunch of extra supplies? In those supplies, why is there a photograph of a woman, and her child that no one else recognizes? I don't think anyone wants to actually sit down and think about this. It doesn't make sense. None of it does. The tomb, it was empty. Well, kinda empty. So right after my last update, we went inside the tomb. Immediately entering, the solid black granite was much cooler than the outside Egyptian heat. We used the map that the drones created, and followed the winding path deeper inside. The only noise audible was the sound of our own footsteps against the solid stone. It really did feel like we were the first ones in there. The main room also showed no signs of anyone else before us, or maybe they just didn't leave a trace. It was a large room that seemed like it should be filled with priceless artifacts, but there was nothing, except for the coffin. This goes against most Egyptian burials. They believe that you brought your possessions with you to the afterlife. Why were there none in the room? At first, we thought we had found the tomb of someone infamous, someone who did something so horrible, the Egyptians wanted to forget about them. But opening the sarcophagus led to only more questions. It was empty. I couldn't sleep last night. Just as I felt like I was finally dozing off, it sounded like someone was mumbling, or whispering in their sleep. I didn't recognize whose voice it was, and even when my eyes adjusted to the darkness of the tent, I couldn't see anyone's lips moving. Despite this, I've been making solid progress on my translations. A lot of it seemed to repeat the warning on the door. Some of the new stuff talks about a voice, translated to, your voice. It could also be, my voice. It's tough to discern the context. I'll keep working on it. While we wait for a ride to show up in the next few days, I'm going to try to translate more of this sarcophagus. Mostly to keep my mind off of what's happening, but a piece of me also feels like this is important. There's something we missed. I couldn't sleep last night, so at some point, I must have scribbled what I wrote earlier. I'd be lying if I said I remembered writing that, though. I think it's what I'm secretly afraid of, that was a sealed coffin. I'm not really superstitious, but what if we're cursed? I feel ridiculous writing that, but things have been only getting worse, quicker. I keep getting strange little urges, light all of our matches. Rip a hole in our tent. Draw a deep line in the sand with my foot. As fast as they arrive, they leave. But it's tough to act against them. I can see everyone on edge. They must be dealing with the same thing. I need to focus on my translations today. This might prove to be the distraction I need. Who is he? What did we let out? Nothing. Nothing is coming. Is nothing a thing? Or a state that will reach? I'm going to keep this to myself. I don't want the rest of the crew freaking out. This doesn't sit right, though. He will have my voice, but my actions will be his. Is this what we're all experiencing? What is going on? Who is in my head? //////. There. Whatever I wrote ends there. I can't remember much from our time by that tomb, only bits and pieces. I can remember the tomb itself. I remember we opened it. My solid memories kick up right when we were being driven back. The driver kept asking us if there were more people, but we were sure that there were only the 4 of us. He seemed to hesitate on that information, but if I'm being honest, the guy was a little weird anyway. Driving us back to the base of operations, he kept swerving the car back and forth, just for the fun of it, it seemed. Everyone's been acting weird around us. It's subtle, but I've seen a guy impulsively kick over a waste bin. Another guy bit his cheek hard enough to bleed a little. It didn't take long for a few guys in suits to step in, and ask us about what we remember down by the tomb. They've had us in quarantine for some time now, but I think whatever they're trying to quarantine, it's too late. I've heard them use the term intrusive thoughts in passing, and I think that's the best way to describe what I've been feeling. These thoughts that I have. I wish I knew what to say. If this ever gets out there, to whoever's reading this, please, you can't listen to that voice when it calls. I don't know what that voice is inching us towards with these small actions, but if a butterfly flapping its wings can cause a typhoon on the other side of the globe, I shudder to think what the small actions of the entire world might be leading to.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
The Ringing in My Ear, by Pippinacious. We got the call at 4 a.m. Being woken like that, by a shrill ringing in the otherwise still and quiet dark, is something no one should have to experience. You know before you pick up that something has happened, that something life-changing is about to be dropped in your lap, and all you can do is answer. I stuck my finger in my ear and wiggled it around, trying to lessen the sound, but it remained, steady and irritating and beeping. After we'd calmed her down and got a look at the wound, we agreed she'd need stitches. While Helena got her dressed, I called the hospital where I worked as an anesthetist and got a hold of one of my doctor buddies to let him know I was coming in. Helena stayed home with our son while I took Emily in. "Is it gonna hurt?" Emily asked from the back seat. She was staring at me in the rearview mirror, one eye covered by the cloth she was pressing against her forehead. "No, I'll make sure it doesn't." Remember how we talked about how Daddy makes people go to sleep for his job? It had become something of a joke in our house, better behave or Daddy'll put you to sleep, forever. Yeah. You're gonna do that to me? Emily was a tough little girl. She was a tougher young woman. All the while, the deafness and ringing in my ear continued. Beep. 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 Still, I put off going to get it checked out. I figured it was some kind of screw-up from the dentist's injection and there wouldn't be much that could be done about it anyway. It would be almost impossible to prove. We had just started discussing whether she felt comfortable enough to return to school when things began to unravel. "Kiddo. You okay?" Beep. 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 When I got home that night, Emily was sitting on the back porch, staring off vacantly while our dogs wandered about the yard. She jumped when I opened the slider and took a seat next to her. "You okay?" I asked. And stuff was clearly things that no father ever wants to think of his daughter doing. I just nodded. He said if I ever told, he'd share all of our texts so people would know I wanted it, and he'd make sure you were fired and that your career would be over. Emily was shaking with sobs. His grandpa's the chief of medicine, he could have done it. I pulled her in close and held her while she cried. "I can't, Dad," she said. "He has texts and pictures. No one would believe me." Before I could speak, Dr. Gladson looked up and said, "Oh, good, Martha found you. I wanted to talk to you about my grandson, Vic. He's having surgery this afternoon, nothing too serious, but I'd like you to be his anesthetist. I'd ask Taylor, but he's already scheduled." "Good. It's at 2:30 with Dr. Lim." As I turned to leave, the ringing in my left ear seemed so loud that it was almost throbbing. Beep. 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 At 2:30, as promised, I was seated at the head of the surgery table behind the ether screen. Victor, a good-looking kid with a cocksure attitude about him, was lying in front of me. "Hello, Victor," I said. "Is this your first surgery? So you know how anesthesia works?" "Yes." 10. "Yeah. Yeah. Emily." "Oh yeah, I think so." 6. "Maybe." He was getting drowsy. "I put people to sleep for a living, Vic," I was whispering. "Huh?" He was struggling to stay awake. "Sometimes permanently." Beep. 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 I was glad for the surgical mask, then, as they covered Victor with the white sheet.
You're still tuned to Horus Lop. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
My ex always hated our dog, but he probably would have taken her too if she weren't so ugly. My ex and I had been together 6 years, never married. He said marriage was outdated. I said fine. Was I upset by that? Yes and no. Well, yes. But I kept quiet. I loved him. When the time came for me to move all the things that were actually mine out of the place, I realized I had even less than I did 6 years ago. It all barely filled the U-Haul van. I didn't have a couch or chairs, those were his on paper. I didn't have any dishes or silverware, we'd thrown out my old ones when he'd bought a fancy new set a couple years ago. I didn't even have a mattress, he'd gotten us an expensive memory foam king size. I remember I'd always wanted to let Lulu hop up on that bed to snuggle while we watched movies in our room. My ex wouldn't hear of it. Stop treating the dog like it's a person, he'd said. She's lucky she gets to even live inside the apartment with us. I was the one who got Lulu from the pound, back when she was a puppy. She's a street dog, or she was, until the people from animal control swept her up one day as she'd been rummaging through an overturned trash can. You can tell she's got a good amount of pit bull in her, but beyond that she's an all-American mutt with a big boulder of a head, a weirdly thin body and stumpy legs. She waddles more than walks, and she snores like crazy, but she's a total sweetheart. When she sees kids, she lies on her belly and waits until they get close before she gives them kisses. We didn't even train her to do that. It was a 10-plus hour drive, just Lulu and me in the front of the van as we rumbled through the endless pastoral of farmland and cow towns. I'd purposefully decided to take the smaller highway to avoid traffic, since I was still uncomfortable driving the U-Haul, and the scenery made me glad I did. Tall fast food signs rose up into the sky like totem poles against clouds so big and white they almost made you want to cry. But I'd promised myself I was done crying. Or at least until I'd gotten off the road. I'd had to pack the U-Haul by myself, so it had already been early afternoon by the time I set off. After about 4 hours on the road, the sky began to dim over the highway. Just as the sun sunk beneath the ridges of the mountains in the distance, I heard a loud clang somewhere below my feet. I had trouble seeing out the back window because my stuff was piled up, but I managed to get over to an exit that was just ahead. Richard and Sons Auto Repair. A quarter mile ahead. I know you've probably heard a story like this before. A story where a car breaks down in the middle of nowhere on a backroads highway, a young woman by herself. Maybe she meets a creepy guy in overalls who says something like, "Well, you must be lost, little missy," as he eyes her like she's a good meal he's about to devour. But it really wasn't like that. "Evening, ma'am," said the perfectly normal-looking guy inside the auto repair shop. "How can I help you?" "Oh, and who's this cutie?" he added, taking notice of Lulu at my side. "My sons Abel and Dean will run diagnostics, then you and I can head into the office to call the U-Haul folks," Richard said as we walked up to them. "Don't want this to be on your tab, after all. Abel, want to take the keys?" I handed the keys to the son named Abel, who was a little chubby and pale, his shaved head dotted with moles. He seemed shy and only nodded when he took the keys from me. I stuttered through what had happened, feeling like a nervous high school girl again, but he just smiled and nodded the whole time, his voice calm like a doctor at a bedside. Well, I'm sure we'll figure it out. And like my dad said, don't worry. We'll make sure the U-Haul folks pay up, not you." I thanked him, trying to ignore the fact that I was blushing for no reason. "Her," I said. "And her name is Lulu." "Well, hi there Lulu." When he reached down to pet her, Lulu stepped back and showed her teeth, growling under her breath. Dean raised his eyebrows a little, but then he pursed his lips and nodded as if he understood, and I appreciated that he didn't ask anything further about it. He told me to go wait on him, that he'd handle everything from here. When I got back to the office, Dean's father Richard had already sorted out the bill with the U-Haul folks. There was nothing else to do but wait for the van to be ready. A TV hanging in the corner was playing a muted episode of Judge Judy. Richard took a seat across from me in the waiting area and petted Lulu while telling me a little about himself and his family. His wife had died a year and a half ago, he said. Passed suddenly in her sleep, which is a mercy, I suppose. It had been a tough string of months, but he and his sons were close. They were getting him through it. Lulu seemed to sense his sadness, because she showed more attachment to him than most other male strangers. "I hope you don't mind me speaking out of turn," Richard said as he stroked Lulu's head, "but I'm relieved you have this dog here with you." "Why's that?" "I mean, I appreciate you giving me a heads up, at least," I said. I almost asked if Dean had a girlfriend, as if that weren't a totally crazy and pathetic question to pose to a total stranger, but before I had the chance to embarrass myself, the other son, Abel, shuffled into the office and murmured something to his father. "Nope, all taken care of. Get you a receipt for insurance purposes, but otherwise you're good to go. Here, let me walk you and Lulu out." Of course, I thought. And really, what did I expect? Just because Dean was working at some Nowheresville auto repair shop didn't change the fact that he was still wildly handsome and easy to talk to. If anything, girls probably swooned over the fact that he could take a car apart by hand, peeling off his shirt afterward, his muscles gleaming with sweat, etc., etc. I felt like an idiot. "Drive safe," he breathed. I swear I almost crashed the car. She was going crazy, turning her head side to side as she barked back at whatever we'd just passed on the side of the road. But I couldn't even say that without my own voice choking up. 7 women found dead in the woods beyond the cornfields, Richard had said. My hands felt slippery on the wheel. I'd never been comfortable driving a U-Haul van before, and it didn't help that the darkness seemed to devour the headlamps, so that I could barely see a few feet in front of me down the highway. In case what? Eventually we entered South Carolina. We passed out of the rural area, and it was only when the bright flood lamps of passing car dealerships and 24-hour fast food places illuminated the inside of the cabin that Lulu fell silent. When I did, Lulu shot up. "Okay, yes, we're here, girl. You can relax now." "Hey, chill out," I said as I grabbed my bag and sat up again. "What are you panting for, girl? We're all ready." I froze. It was coming from somewhere in the back of the van. Just then, Lulu showed her teeth and growled. I'd locked it, but it could still open from the inside. The door bounced back as it fully opened, and then out fell a naked body, tangled limbs hitting the pavement, a mess of blonde hair shimmering in the dark. "Hello. Hello," I said into the phone. I need help. Someone, he was in my van. Please send police to." Lulu barked and jumped forward. "Please send help," I said into the phone, repeating my sister's address over and over. "Please, he's got a knife." "You should be thanking me, you know that." He waved the knife from side to side, as if reprimanding me. "I'm way out of your league, so the fact that I chose you tonight, it's really an act of charity." Dean lunged forward, slashing the knife at her. Lulu yelped and flipped to the side as the blade swept across her back, her body scrambling over the pavement, but then it was Dean who screamed, falling back as his knife landed on the ground. "I'm gonna kill this dog," Dean screamed. Blood poured from the stump at his wrist. With his other hand, he reached down to grab the knife, then turned to face her. But Lulu was already upon him, lunging up in the air, her own blood streaking off the gash in her back as she flew. Dean's mugshot showed a guy with a mutilated, torn-up face, bruised and bloody and held together with stitches. When the police had arrived that night outside my sister's house, they had found him half dead on the sidewalk, blood leaking from his neck. As for Lulu and me, I had already carried her inside the house. The police found us on the tile floor of the kitchen, Lulu bleeding out in my lap, unmoving, while I whispered to her, "I love you, girl. I love you so much." During a news conference a few days later, the police chief said that for the past year and a half, the 2 brothers had been using road traps on the backroad highway to cause damage to passing vehicles, forcing them to stop. In most cases, they fixed the cars and that was that, nothing more than a scam to gain business for their father's shop. But when the driver was a pretty young woman, the 2 used the shop's tow truck to lure the women away to a remote location past the cornfields. DNA samples from at least 4 of the women were found inside the truck. With the last would-be victim, the brothers appeared to have gotten reckless and instead lured her right to the repair shop, said the police chief during the press conference. Had the young women not been accompanied by her dog, a pit bull mix by the name of Lulu, there's no telling what. My ex did text me once, though, just after he heard the news. "Hope you're okay," the text said. Normally I would have sat for hours, deliberating over how to respond. Normally I wouldn't have watched the rest of the coverage of the case. It was already traumatic enough. I was told I would have to testify, that it would be a long process, and I wanted to avoid it as much as I could. But I made sure to watch the news segment on Lulu. A moment of celebration today as Lulu the scrappy pit bull mix gets a hero's welcome outside the Eastside Animal Hospital, said the news anchor. She made a soft noise, her tail wagging. Then she hopped up awkwardly on the bed, still a little sore from her wounds. She sighed a grumbly, growling purr in response.
Need a break? Too bad. These stories don't wait, and neither do we. Next one's worse. In the best way.
He intended to post them in the lobby as a joke. It was me who suggested slipping them under the doors of freshmen. We were both resident assistants. He was RA for 2nd floor north, I was RA for 3rd floor south. So we had an excuse to roam the halls any time of night, and we had lists of which residents were freshmen. Double plus uncool behavior for RAs, obviously. But I only intended it as a joke. Over the next couple of days, I kept having to stifle giggles in class, as new rules popped into my head. After class Brian and I compared notes, culling out the duds. Sometimes we didn't agree. He really wanted a classic, if someone knocks. Rule, and I flatly refused, bored with them. We hammered out a final list, rules only, consequences left to the imagination. This is part of it, the ones that became important. I formatted them as a little trifold pamphlet and printed off about 40 on plain white paper. One night we slipped about 20 under the doors of freshman-only rooms on various floors. The next day I kind of held my breath. But nobody said anything, and we spread about 15 more that night. The second morning I saw a kid in the lobby with one of our pamphlets. He stopped Stella Pilecki, RA for 3 North, and showed it to her. She read it through. I saw a couple of quickly suppressed grins. She looked up and said deadpan, "Yeah. So are these for real?" Sean Brown, RA for 2 South, caught me in the hall one day. "Beth, have you seen these?" I felt a twinge of guilt. I remember how stressful freshman year was, and more than a twinge of nerves. This really wasn't good behavior for an RA, maybe even enough to get me or Brian kicked out. Rosie Crowell, RA for 1 North, made a point of waiting until somebody bought a Diet Dew before she'd buy her Diet Pepsi. Just plain annoyed at how many people took the rules seriously, she was trying to debunk them. I prepared a second version of the rules, different font, altered formatting, and 2 new rules. I finished off my orange paper printing these, but I didn't slip them under doors. Instead I kind of dropped them here and there, lying on the stairs, in the kitchen microwave, tucked between lobby couch cushions. Soon people were arguing about them. I got a big kick out of threatening doom to whoever put my room number in the rules. I did more random hall prowls at odd hours, looking for the perpetrators. It was perfect camouflage for my guilty secret. In the middle of the night I heard 2 hard whams on my door, pretty common when people get rowdy. But in the morning I couldn't open my door. I called Brian, who came across to check. "Yeah, it's pennies. And they're hammered right in there, not gonna be prying them out." Well, for some students, especially women, that might have been a problem. But I keep a small toolkit, so it only took me a couple of minutes to knock the hinge pins out. Brian shoved the entire door into my room a few inches. I heard the dull tink of pennies falling, and murmuring from women who'd gathered. "But that's an orange rule," a red-haired freshman protested. "You aren't supposed to follow them." Now I dedicated 4 to the cause, tacking them to the doors of people who'd been skeptical, like Rosie Crowell and a freshman named Celia. By the next afternoon, everybody in the dorm had seen one. Celia, a plump pretty Hispanic girl, was amused, but Rosie was distinctly rattled. "You can't just run to the ATM and get brand new 16-year-old bills," she pointed out. She said she'd take hers to church. She'd made a point, again, of waiting until somebody bought a Diet Dew before getting her DP, and she'd nearly made herself late for class. So she popped the can, chugged it down, and tossed it in the recycle bin before heading out the door. From my seat in the lobby I heard screaming. Running to the door, I saw Rosie bent over. She dropped her pack and sat down cradling her hands, which looked swollen and red. By the time I got down the steps, her fingernails were spurting blood. She was scraping her Nikes on the sidewalk. I bent and unfastened them. I could barely pull the shoes off, her feet were so swollen, her half socks were already sodden red. They all told it differently, but it came to this: the panel with the coin slot and push buttons opened up and grabbed her right arm. She tried to pull loose, and it closed on her fingers, chopping off all but her index finger and thumb. 3 of them said the machine growled. 2 said they heard weird music from it. 2 said the room lights dimmed and turned blue. I didn't get Brian's reaction. He was shocked at Celia's injury, but at the same time he seemed excited. We'd dated for over a year, but I began to wonder about him. Friday night I was in Brian's room working on psychology when a freshman, all upset, knocked at the open door. Oh, shit, I thought, what now? But they're gonna kick him out and dash, he's gotta find $3,000 this week. Brian asked an obvious question. Why are you coming to me? Mark's too freaked out. He broke a rule. Brian wasn't just excited, now, he was absolutely hilarious. He chased off the freshman and took one of our original pamphlets off his desk, nothing incriminating, as RAs we'd both collected them. He went down the list, checking some rules, crossing out others, putting a question marks on a couple. Nah, that's bullshit, he muttered, that one, maybe that one. I couldn't stand him in that mood. I went back to my room to sleep alone. I woke to the most blood-chilling sound I've ever heard. It was a howl, but way more than that. It went up and down like a yowling cat, it growled and screamed and hooted and wailed. It echoed in the courtyard like the ambulance that had carried off Celia, but I could tell it was a single voice. It wasn't human, but at the same time no one animal should have made all those noises. I knew I should go to the window, try to see who it was and dash, the courtyard's brightly lit and dash, but that horrible howl froze me to my bed. I pulled a blanket over my head and shivered. I'd thoughtlessly carried off the list of rules he'd marked up, the one I'd snatched from him. He'd checked or put a question mark on several, they're the ones I listed at the beginning. By now, I'd seen or heard of most of them affecting somebody. Then the rules came after me. The Tuesday morning after Rayma disappeared, I shuffled into the bathroom for my shower. I shot out of the bathroom like a spit wad from a straw. The pocket of my robe caught on the doorknob and ripped open. I stood shaking in the middle of my room, trying to remember if I'd seen the walls last night, if anybody could have been in my room. Well, Mom Franks could have been, she had a master key. But the RAs don't get them, if there's a bad problem we have to get her. I sniffed the air. Paint smell lasts for days, and my room smelled just like always. Oh, God, were blue walls an orange rule or not? I couldn't remember. I pulled out the pamphlets I'd collected. Blue bathroom, an orange rule. The white rule said to ignore the orange rules, but blue bathroom said if I didn't do the right thing, either you or a sweet mate will die within a month. As an RA, I didn't have any sweet mates. If it hadn't been for Mark and his lost scholarship, I might have broken down and bloodied my sink. Bless you, Mark, you poor dumbass. Somebody clogged the spout of the water fountain with superglue. Bob Wester's roommate rewarmed a Patsy's cheese pizza in the kitchen oven, took one bite, then started throwing up blood and huge earthworms. What are you doing here? Though the dorms are co-ed, we aren't supposed to have opposite-sex visitors in our rooms overnight. I mostly turn a blind eye to discreet overnights, but for our ace the rule is especially important, since we get called out at any hour. He pushed his way in like I'd invited him. Somebody's gonna talk to you soon, he said. You've got to say the right thing. Nobody in the school has a damn clue. I'm talking about the circle. They're witches, a gang of witches. I laughed out loud. Witches. You're gonna be a warlock. I just looked confused. I did it, Brian said. I made a spell, that made our rules work, to show the circle I could. He pointed a finger at me. Somebody from the circle's gonna find you in the next few days. You can tell them and dash. Live in dorms long enough, you learn to scream in a whisper. You shithead. Do you know how many people you've hurt? So now I'm hoping somebody from the circle, whoever they are, really will come talk to me. Maybe they can remove the curse. Does anybody on here know how to undo a curse like this? I haven't been able to get into Brian's room, to see if he left any instructions or formulas or anything. Maybe I can convince Mom Franks I left some personal stuff in there. Maybe from now on we'll have to give everyone in Millard a real list of rules. Update, I've met somebody from the circle.
Whew, telling gave me chills. But hey, we're just getting started. The next one's sharper. You'll see.
My name is Michael Kendris. I work for the government in research and development, part of a special task force investigating new substances, particularly those that might pose a threat to public safety. Before Noctira hit the streets, I'd never heard of it. When the first reports came in, they seemed trivial, people tripping on a new psychedelic. Strange visual distortions. Nausea. Minor confusion. Nothing unusual. After all, society was already drowning in a sea of legal highs and designer drugs. But I've learned, painfully, tragically, that things are never what they seem. As a government official, I was supposed to be keeping the situation under control. At first, we tried to isolate the drug, track down where it was coming from, who was behind it, how it was spreading. But the deeper we dug, the more horrifying the truth became. It wasn't just a drug. It was a vector. A parasite. I called Clara. The phone rang once, twice, and then she picked up. But it wasn't her voice that answered. Clara? What are you talking about? I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding. It's the drug, isn't it? Noctira. You're on it. I'm coming for you. We can leave. We can get out of the city, just. No, her voice cut through, sharp and clear. There is no escape. There is only one way. The blood of the innocent must be spilled. You'll see. You'll know. But the worst part? I realized that I was already infected. The parasite was in me too. I could feel it crawling beneath my skin, like a burning itch in the back of my mind, urging me to join them. To embrace the chaos. To sacrifice anyone I could.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
I listened to a true crime podcast, About Myself, by Robert Mort. That chilly September evening was no different for the young student. She'd left her shift at the local store and walked back home, except she never made it home. I glanced behind me looking at the alleyway behind Alessandro's Pizza, which was dark except for the neon light spilling from the sign. Her boyfriend reported her missing the next day. The town conducted a volunteer-led search, and after 2 days, they found something. Dread formed in my stomach, anticipating a body. But what he said next was so much worse. And looked down at my red Converse sneakers, damp from the rain. What the hell? My name. I didn't have time to think. I forced myself to move. I broke into a run. The small shops turned into a colorful blur. No. Vararm. The sound was so soft I almost didn't hear it over the voice of the podcast. I whipped around, and there it was. 2 blaring white headlights behind me. Kelly wasn't just a registered sex offender. He'd been convicted of assaulting a woman he worked with, who had multiple piercings and short dark hair, just like Sarah. Click. I heard the rush of the car passing our house, continuing down the road. But I wasn't safe. Gabe wasn't home yet. I was alone, in a dark house, with someone driving down the street who knew exactly where I lived. Still sobbing, I checked all the locks. Then I called Gabe, who assured me he was 5 minutes away. I made my way down the dark hallway and headed into the bathroom. Then I set my phone on the counter, grabbed a clump of tissues, and began to blow my nose. Click. But it wasn't coming from outside the door. My phone's screen lit up. The podcast was still playing. I must have hit it when I put the phone down. It had skipped several minutes forward, according to the play indicator. What do you think happened to Sarah? The baritone voice asked. I reached for it, to turn it off. Well, she told me she wanted to run away before. It was Gabe's voice. Clear as day, coming from the speakers. My heart pounded in my ears. That's all for now. Thank you to our listeners. The outro played. I stared at my reflection, everything coming down all at once, my mind trying to race and catch up with what it meant. Sarah. I'm back. My eyes fell on the window. I ran over to it, turned the lock. I popped the screen out. Then I swung a leg over, pulled myself through the window, and ran as fast as I could.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
My name is Lily Madwip, and I see things before they happen, by Lillian Madwip. That's my brother, Roger. He doesn't see things before they happen. I know this because if he did, he would see what's about to happen to him. Then again, maybe he does, but people like us can't see things that are about to happen to ourselves. I don't know, truthfully. All I know is that in about 3 minutes, Roger is going to die. You're going to die, I tell him. No, I tell him truthfully, I'm just trying to warn you. I love you, Roger. Will you two knock it off back there? Mom asks. It's not really a question though, it's an order. Adults can give orders in the form of questions. If you're a kid, and you try to do this, it doesn't work. I once tried to order Roger to give me back my doll Pachar by asking him, and he laughed at me and twisted Pascar's head off. Mom had to put it back on, but she's never been one for toy repair, so it's kind of crooked now. I told her I didn't mind, that it gives him personality. She does. And I do too. Roger declares. I don't think Roger actually has to go. Dad turns onto the ramp for the rest stop, ending the conversation. There's 2 lanes, one for the big trucks and one for little cars. Our station wagon takes the second lane and wraps back around to go up a hill to the parking lot for the rest area. There's some sort of big rock on a pedestal with a commemorative plaque at the base with lots of names of people who are dead. Other families are going in and coming out of the glass-wrapped building. I wonder how far we are from the nearest hospital. Everybody out. Dad declares. Lily, hurry, Mom says as she unbuckles her seatbelt and opens her door. I look over at Roger one last time and try to smile. He looks back at me. For a moment, there's the faintest glimmer of recognition in his eyes. I think maybe he's going to shut the door and stay in the car. Then he sneers at me and the moment is lost. Stop staring at me, ass face. The rock does not squish Roger. Roger does not get sucked into the automatic toilets. My father is looking in the rear-view mirror at what he considers his two biggest mistakes. My mother is passing her glare back and forth between me and Roger. Roger is looking at Mom and Dad and trying to put on an innocent expression as he lies and tells them that I started it. Only one of us is looking at the lane for the big trucks that we're currently merging with at Dad's typical high rate of speed, and that's me. What do I see out Roger's window but a giant truck with lots of big tires and a large trailer on back barreling down at us with a driver in the cab who looks as shocked and confused as I am. I'm not screaming for Pachar anymore, I'm screaming for Dad to brake or steer or anything, but he can't tell the difference between one type of screaming and the next, and anyway it's too late. Apparently T-bone is also a type of collision where one vehicle strikes another in the side. Because the two vehicles make a T-shape, just like the bone in the steak my uncle ordered. That's what the big truck does to us, it T-bones us right before the on-ramp to the interstate. One of the emergency medical people who treats us on the scene finds Pachar and gives him back to me. He always finds his way back to me. The EMT asks me what my doll's name is and gives me a funny look when I tell him. I don't tell him that he's about to get a call for an old lady who suffered a stroke in some place called Middlebury. That kind of trivial information is lost on most people. Kind of like I know my mom and dad are going to cry and hug each other and worry about Roger until they find out he's dead. After that, Dad will get more distant because he secretly blames me. It's not a secret, Dad, I know, and Mom will hug me a little tighter each night at bedtime. I see it, but they don't need to know I do. I hope Roger is in a better place, but Pachar tells me he's not. Pachar is always right.
Whew, telling gave me chills. But hey, we're just getting started. The next one's sharper. You'll see.
Yet something about that miserable little monster stopped me in my tracks. The image depicted the cat with its mouth wide open in a silent cry, looking up at the person behind the camera with pleading eyes. I guess, in the end, maternal instinct had overpowered my personal biases. When I called the woman, we'll call her Jamie, she lamented about how disappointed she was that it took so long for someone to respond to the post. She made it evident that she was one of those bleeding heart cat ladies, and I sat through her rambling about how she already had 5 cats and couldn't afford to take in another one. The very idea of sharing a home with that many animals disgusted me. I was there to pick up the cat the next day. Jamie provided me with a small crate and a package of over-the-counter veterinary eye drops and gave me basic instructions on proper application. She eventually ran back into her house to retrieve the animal, her voice and demeanor softening as she carried it back out. Seeing how it fit in her palm made me soften as well. It was so small. It's funny how your opinions can change so quickly when faced with the subject of your preconceived loathing. That wasn't a dirty animal. It was a baby kitty cat. I didn't plan on naming him, but he looked so much like a Peter. I couldn't resist. He picked up on litter box training in a flash and his eye infection cleared up within a week. Cats care for themselves surprisingly well. We basically lived like uncaring roommates for the first few weeks of his stay. He had his own life and I had mine. I honestly forgot he was there at times. He was a very quiet cat. I don't know when it happened precisely, but at some point he was sleeping in my lap every time I worked at my desk. Anytime I sat down, he was there. It became routine, and I eventually stopped resisting it. I only objected to his affections when he occasionally attempted to suckle my stomach whenever I wore a fluffy sweater. It's not his fault he was never properly weaned. I loved him. More than I ever thought I could love anything. Since childhood, I would overhear my mother talking about how much she loathed house pets. They're dirty animals. She would say, I already have my kids to deal with. I blindly claimed her tastes as my own for years. I hated pets. I'd sneer if my friends brought their dogs to any social outings. I'd talk at length on message boards about how humans were above caring for worthless animals. I talked similarly of children, too. I considered myself a proud antinatalist once upon a time. Yet here I was, holding a dirty animal as if he were my own flesh and blood. I'm not used to you being so passive, Jen. Emma sighed. I tensed, running a finger around the rim of my glass. Yeah, well. I was a dickhead and I'm sorry. Yeah, Emma continued. It didn't take much convincing to make you change your tune on, well, everything. I stared between them, feeling small under their subtly accusatory glares. Do you think I'm on drugs? I think what we mean to say is we feel like we're getting to know you all over again. I mean, how long did you have all this love inside you and you just never let yourself show it? Peter now took to kneading at Emma's thighs, purring loudly. The sight was mesmerizing enough to make me zone out and dig into my own head. She was right. A lot of what made me recognizable to my friends was my almost cartoonishly contrarian nature. People would say they loved their pets, I'd smugly brag about how much I hated them. People would say they loved their kids, I'd laugh and tell them to keep them away from me. As consistently hateful as I was, I always maintained a certain air of self-aware, self-deprecating humor. Come to think of it, I performed as if I knew I was unlovable and everyone around me believed me and played along. I took a sip of my wine and leaned back, glaring up at my ceiling light. I miscarried in 2007. I went to bed and called out for Peter, but he never came to snuggle with me. I suppose he was enjoying his catnip elsewhere. I fell into slumber shortly after. Shoo. It's okay. The wailing dulled into hiccups and wet cooing. Something has changed within my body. Something familiar but deeply wrong. I don't know what happened in those days of unconsciousness, but I know he is still here. Smaller, writhing in my anatomy like a parasite. He has grown every day and is now the size of a melon. I feel him when I poke beneath my belly button. With each passing day, I feel another pain joining the usual cramps and twitches. This body, one that could not bear the fruits of my labor, is once again being split apart, all because I dared to love again.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
I'll assume you all know about the deep web. Well, what you've heard is true, it's not a great place. While some people are there to score weed or firearms, or even out of sheer curiosity, others, well, they're obviously not up to anything good. But I'm not here to talk about those sickos. I'm here to talk about what lies beyond that point. The more cryptic and unexplainable part of the internet. The part that nobody's really supposed to see. There was an infographic that cropped up a while ago. Not sure when. The 8 levels of the internet. Maybe you've seen it. As interesting as it was, it's complete bunk. I'm sorry, but polymeric falsigold derivation means nothing. And the Primarch system? I guess somebody's a fan of Warhammer. No, there's no quantum mechanics involved here. However, that doesn't mean it was an easy place to find. Now, I'm not going to begin to tell you how to get here. It's unlikely that'd you be able to, even if I did. I'm not tooting my own horn here, I just didn't have a life outside of this. I was warned, of course. Everybody told me I wasn't going to like what I saw. That I wouldn't even understand it. Now I'm passing off that warning to you. Don't try to look for this. There's no official name for this place, or at least I haven't seen one. There were rumors, however. These ranged from an Illuminati chat room to a virtual holding cell for an experimental AI gone rogue. In reality, it's a lot worse. After a long and painful process of breaking down firewalls, encryptions, solving bizarre philosophical riddles, and following hidden links, I was finally directed to a blank page with one line of text and a text box underneath. Quid queries? Latin for, what do you seek? I remember feeling surprised. But in retrospect, I didn't know what I was expecting. I'll admit, I was a bit stumped here. Partly because I didn't know the answer to that question. I had no objective, I just wanted to see if I could do it. I tried some generic answers at first. I typed in, the truth, and, enlightenment. You know, Matrix shit. Nothing happened. I tried a bunch of answers, but none of them worked. I was getting frustrated at this point. Maybe this was a gag page. Maybe I really hadn't figured anything out. If only. I think I had a meltdown and passed out eventually, because I woke up on my floor in the middle of the night. I looked at my computer screen to see looped helicopter footage of a massive, crab-like creature tearing apart a coastal island. I clicked off of it. I just sat there for the longest time. I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing, and I don't think I really wanted to. Now, I'm not really sure why I kept going. My brain was screaming for me to take my computer out to the lawn and smash it into pieces. But I didn't. I noticed something I hadn't before. A small message at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. I don't know if it was always there or not. It was hard to read, so I had to squint. More Latin. Translated into, are you satisfied? There were two options underneath it, yes and no. Now, I knew the answer to this question. Hell no, I wasn't satisfied. I was horrified, scarred for life. But I should have clicked on yes. If I just clicked on yes, it would have taken me out of that godforsaken place. Back to comfort and sanity. Even right now, I can't tell you why I clicked on no. But once I did, the page seemed to refresh. It was still the same basic setup, except there were only 4 links. This time, there were no recognizable numbers or characters. Hell, it didn't look like anything that could have come from this world. Just a collection of extremely crude symbols that didn't give off any sense of pattern or direction. I clicked on the first link. After about 20 seconds, I slammed my computer shut. I can't describe to you what I saw. All I know is that I wasn't supposed to see it. Nobody should ever see something like this. It's not only that it didn't make any sense, I can't tell you why it didn't. I couldn't begin to grasp the images I was seeing. It wasn't graphic or anything, not like that. I just couldn't recognize anything. I could make out things moving, but not in a way any creature on Earth has ever moved before. Colors that I'd never seen before. Just thinking about it gives me a splitting headache. This is my best attempt at visualizing it. We have 3 dimensions here on Earth. We can move forwards, backwards, left, right, 72.4 degrees southwest, etc. These things weren't restricted to that. I can't explain it any further. All I know is that I didn't want to watch one more second. I don't think I would have been able to. I left my room. For the first time in a while, I was planning to leave my house. I needed fresh air. To take a walk or something. Hell, I was thinking about running a marathon in the middle of the night just to get my mind off of that shit for a few hours. I was putting on my jacket when I heard a knock at the door. I stopped dead in my tracks. Obviously, I wasn't opening up. About a minute and 5 more sets of knocks came before somebody spoke up. Open up. We know what you did, but we're not here to hurt you. We just want to talk. The tone wasn't threatening. Eventually, I obliged. I opened up my door to 2 tall, slim men in suits. They smiled at me. Can we come in? I still don't know how they found me. I thought for sure that I was off the grid. We sat down on the couch. I guess I was just waiting for answers at this point. One of them looked at me and said, "What were you looking for?" "I don't know. But I'm not going back," I responded. He smiled again. Like this is what he wanted to hear. The other one piped up, "Who do you work for?" His tone was a bit more aggressive. I just shook my head. Look, I didn't know what I was getting into. I wasn't looking for anything. They just stared at me for a while. I'm not gonna tell anybody. Trust me. They finally responded, "We're not worried about that. Doubt anybody'd believe you." Another smile. Somehow it felt genuine. We just wanted to know what your priorities were. In retrospect, that was a very strange question. Just do us favor and we'll leave. I perked up. Give us the device you used to access it. I didn't ask any questions. I ran upstairs and basically tossed them my laptop. They both smirked at me one last time before heading for the door. Just as they were about to leave, one of them turned back. "I don't think you need to be told, but don't try this again. And don't show anybody else how to get there either. We'll know." I didn't ask who they were. I'm not sure I would have wanted to know. It's been a week now. I don't go on the internet so much anymore. After this, I'm going to try and forget. To try and not to think about it anymore. I've started having horrific nightmares. Been seeing a therapist for that, but I don't think it's helping. Anyways, I'm not going to let this consume the rest of my life. The thing is, I'm afraid this might not be possible. There are some things we aren't supposed to know about. Probably for our own safety and sanity. Don't try and seek them out. It's better that way. However, it might be a bit too late for me. Part 2 here.
Still here? Aw, look at you. Brave little meatbag. Too late to back down now. Next story's already watching.
Corn Maze, by Ingrid Nightshade. I'll never forget my 13th birthday. The night before my birthday, I ran to a payphone after school. The word Telstra was slapped across its edge. I called him again. It still went to voicemail. "I really miss you," I forced out, choking on tears. There was only the soft crackling of the line. No person could be that silent. I tilted my head back, trying to dry my tears in the hot summer breeze. "Please. Please. Please," I whispered. I was barely asleep when Layla jumped on her bed. "Jenny. Jenny," she said excitedly, shaking me awake. She handed me the gift wrapped in polka dots with a bow made from hot pink tissue paper. It was a pair of real UGG boots. The price tag was still on them. I hugged her. "You paid for these yourself?" I asked, staring at them in awe. Mom came in with pancakes dripping in maple syrup. She told us we were going on a day trip to a corn maze. I had always wanted to go to one, to laugh with Layla while we figured our way through, trying not to trip over our own feet. We drove in Mum's red Jeep. Cyndi Lauper blasted from the CD player. Mom fake sped while Layla shook her headrest like she was at a concert. I stuck my head out the window like in those cheap 2000s Malibu movies. "Ah, here it is," Mom said, pulling up to the corn maze. The corn was fresh and tall. A scarecrow stood nearby, dressed in hastily stitched 90s clothes. Mom pulled out her leather wallet and handed some cash to a man. "Mom. That's how everyone dies in horror movies." I laughed. But as we walked, the silence grew louder, until there was nothing left. "Layla," I said, a little uneasy. "Yeah," she replied, sounding unfazed. "Shouldn't Mom be back by now?" She didn't answer at first. She tucked her hair behind her ear and listened for footsteps. Layla broke the quiet. "Mom," she called out. My heart did a somersault. That voice, it didn't sound quite right. It had the same pitch, the same call. But it lacked warmth. Layla and I looked at each other. She heard it too. The voice wasn't coming from a single place. It echoed from different directions. "Oh, Genevieve. You've always been so silly. I'm right here." "No, Lydia, we're not calling her just Jenny, and that's final." I was already running. Layla screamed. Whatever that was, it wasn't our mom. It was a mimic. "Why? What's going on?" she asked. Her real voice calmed me instantly. "I just want to go," I said. "This place is weird," Layla added. We walked more. Finally, we saw it. We sighed in relief. But standing there was the man who ran the maze. Later, when we drove back, Layla pointed the camera at the townspeople. They smiled, but not happily. Something in their smiles made every bone in my body go cold. We nodded silently. "Didn't you think that guy was a bit strange?" I asked. Mom said it was time for bed. I had school tomorrow. But Layla insisted we watch the footage. Me and Layla laughed, thinking it was a joke. But she looked serious. "No. No," she said. "Then who was it?" Layla whispered. We played it back. "No one can sound that similar," Layla said, swallowing hard. I fast-forwarded to the man. Zoomed in on his eyes. Black sockets. No light. We sat in silence. We stayed up watching Gavin and Stacy to take our minds off it. Layla opened the mailbox and found 5 presents inside. Mom tried to explain it away with some bad theory like the internet hadn't found that place yet.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
My dog keeps watching me and it's making me uncomfortable, by Midgrid Masochist. Come on Vito, I called while getting his collar ready. As I opened the door to the old trailer, Vito blew by me in focused concentration to make it to his usual spot before relieving himself. How did I get here? Why was my life in such a mess? I've been on top of the world the last few years before everything came tumbling down. I had a home, a family, and a better-than-good job making more than what was needed. Then in an instant, the home was sold, my partner moved away with my child and I lost my job. It was a dark time and I was just looking for some kind of light in all of it. After Vito was content doing his business, he charged back to the door of the camper swiftly. It was 5 a.m. and there was still a chill crawling through the dark morning grass. He's not a fan of the cold, hence his haste. Funny how we don't even notice we do it until it's too late. As soon as I logged in, my subconscious dopamine pleasure was snuffed by a text message from my best friend Adam. It read, "I haven't had time to post anything. I've been grieving about my life and how it spiraled out of control. I've always needed time to cope with sudden negative changes that have surfaced." Curious, I quickly logged into my account and checked to see what images had been uploaded. Is it possible someone has hacked my account? I didn't recall the last time someone was over and sat on that old couch. I probably wouldn't have let them. It was so old and covered in unremovable stains. A freebie that was picked up out of desperation in a time that I was financially incapable of buying anything at all. As I turned, I realized he was quietly sitting on the couch in a perfect pose, panting slowly while locked onto my motion. "I'm sorry buddy," I said in an embarrassing tone. "Let's go eat." He clambered down from the couch and followed me into the kitchen. 8:30 was an hour past his dinner time. Dogs are creatures of habit and love routine. I quickly mixed his food. As I placed it, he acted like he was starving and started lapping before the bowl hit the ground. How dramatic, I thought. My memory has not been right since the accident. I've been angry. Angry at the fact I forget, causing this compounding loop of hate that reaches out its ugly claws to try to find something to blame. Someone hit me on my motorcycle a couple years back. I almost died. I took a life flight to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. Since then, my body and mind have not been the same. I won't go into crazy details about the accident, but it was not my fault. When it happened, it left me with several broken bones and minor brain damage. It's funny, I don't feel like I have brain damage, I feel like I got a second chance. I just get hung up on some things when it comes to remembering, long or short term. It's just another thing to add to the list of how fucked up things have been. I was either completely egotistical or she definitely looked at me with some kind of feelings, maybe. But, I was too chicken shit to ask and ruin what we currently had, so I left it at that. I met her at a small dinner at the edge of town called Buster's. It was exactly what you would expect for a small town. Cheap wood tables, cheap placemats, and cheap food. Living in a cheap town surprises you when you venture out and find out that most things are better than you think. "What's up, ally?" I said in a calm voice. "How are you, Matthew?" she said in an excited tone. "I passed my final exam," Allison proclaimed. "That's great, you studied hard for that," I said reassuringly. "What will it be?" she said while donning the waters, smiling but also transitioning straight to business. "Items just weigh you down. I've never felt such a burden lifted like getting rid of possessions. But, apart from that, I came across some weird photos that I apparently uploaded and don't remember taking. Just pictures of my back while I was sitting at my computer." I chuckled. "You're probably right." A moment of silence fell before I let the situation dissolve and shrugged it off. As we were finishing up, I looked into her eyes, deep and concerning. "Don't hesitate to call me if you ever need anything. You have always been there for me when I needed you. I can at least repay the kindness you have given me." I lowered my eyes and then locked onto hers. She hesitated from the intensity in my eyes and replied with a blushing smile. "Please take care of yourself too, Matthew." The server came back quickly with the check. This woman was on a mission to provide impeccable service. I respect that. After paying, we walked through the threshold into the bright sunny day. My eyes squinted in pain as they adjusted to the sudden change. Though relatively reclusive, I felt comfortable around Allison. She gave off positive energy in a dark and hostile world. It's almost intoxicating with a splash of respect to carry yourself like that these days. She spun me around for a hug. "Thanks for lunch," she whispered into my left ear. I went through the regular evening motions of feeding myself and Vito before sitting in the chair to relax for the night. Just then, my cell phone rang. It was Allison. I just thought things would get better, but they never did. I'm never going back there, she said as she looked at me with intensity. She started laughing as she swung and caught me on the arm with a jab. As soon as it hit, she leaned forward and locked her lips onto mine. An explosion of passion turned everything liquid. Her lips felt like they belonged to mine, like home. She quickly reached down and slid her hand up my thigh, not going too far but far enough to make my whole body vibrate. Every chemical started dumping into a stream of lust, long overdue. Her hand advanced and I felt her soft touch through the outside of my Wranglers. She stripped her shirt off while never leaving my lips, cautious to not miss out on the fire that was burning in front of us. I looked over and saw Vito quietly watching from a distance. She didn't even react to my words. She quickly pulled my shirt over my head and pushed me back onto the couch, her breasts pressing to my chest. Things moved so quickly, before I knew it, I entered. Her eyes rolled back like pure possession had taken over. She continued to grind deeper and deeper like satisfaction was a competition and she refused to lose. She had all this anger built up and she was turning it into a different kind of energy. The sound of pans clinking and water running broke me from my thoughts. As my senses awoke, the smell of breakfast became more clear. I haven't had breakfast in this trailer since maybe the first week here. After that, it just didn't seem like something I wanted to spend my time on. I don't know, these eggs might kill us, she said as she placed a plate on the coffee table. She gave me a smile and just stood there in just her panties. I just sat there, staring at her beautiful form, perfectly symmetrical. A moment that I never wanted to forget. She went from nympho to mother flawlessly. She was part caretaker, part vixen. No doubt in my mind I was completely lost in her. It's almost like we both knew this would happen, it just needed to be properly triggered. I gotta let Vito out, I said as I walked to the door. I already did, she responded before I wasted any time. I sat there for what seemed hours, basking in the stench of last night. I had nothing to my name but, I felt happy for once. At least I had Allison. I went and took a long shower and when I was done I jumped back on the computer while I waited for Allison to come back. If we were going to build a life, I needed to get everything figured out. I felt motivated. Purpose restored. My stomach dropped. What did he mean by that? I logged into my account to find out that I uploaded a new video 8 hours ago. It was me and Allison. I had her laying on the coffee table slowly thrusting. All of our intimate moments on blast. Who could have recorded this video? I didn't have a security system or anything fancy like that. Did she set a camera up and record us to get back at Dale? The angle of the video makes it look like it was being taken from the couch, just like those previous pictures. Covered in sweat, the thoughts raced through my mind. I quickly deleted what I could before anyone else could see it. It's not like how it used to be though, everything is instant and people are so obsessed that it's almost like they are waiting. Goddamn vultures. My parents, my nieces and nephews could have seen this, who knows? I didn't know the extent of the damage, until my phone rang. I was met by rage clear as day. What are you? Some kind of sick fucking pervert. I could hear the disgust and anger in her voice. Before I could get a word out, the call ended. I sat there in silence trying to put everything together. I knew I obviously didn't do it and the way Allison was blowing up on me clearly tells me she didn't want to be top video on some amateur porn site. Vito. I called out. His head leaned to the side. I could not take my eyes off of him now. Something wasn't right. At that time, I noticed him sitting right where the pictures and video were recorded from. He sat there all the time now that I think about it. It was completely insane to think, but what happened doesn't have any explanation. So the mind wanders for reasoning. I felt like reality was breaking away and I was trying to bring myself back to earth. I tried calling and texting Allison, but I got nothing. She probably already went back to Dale. I blew my chance with my dream girl, again. Why did things keep falling apart? The stress of completely losing her started to mount. I went into the kitchen and threw a piece of cheese between two pieces of bread, then returned to the living room. I locked eyes on him and caught what I would call a glitch. His head was moving from left to right and then resetting kinda like a record player when it ends its side and brings the needle back over to reset. Slow, calculated motions that felt more and more unrealistic. Mechanical. I calmly walked over and cautiously put my hand on his head, gently petting him, running my hand down the back of his neck. This time I felt something off. Something was protruding from his neck, something rough and flexible. I brushed back his fur and noticed two little wires, one red and one blue. My heart started to pound as his head slowly turned and his eyes met mine. He looked into me like the jig was up. Just then, a knock at the door. "Hey, let me in." Allison's voice muffled through the wooden door. "I am not coming back to say what you did was okay. I'm really pissed. Half the town thinks I'm a slut, but I don't have anywhere else to go. My mom won't talk to me. She said she needs time to process what she saw, and Dale said I'm never allowed back. I just need to stay the night and I will figure something out tomorrow." Just then, Vito walked into the kitchen and started pawing at his bowl. I just stared at him while I studied his movements, waiting for him to spark or make some kind of servo noise that never happened. I slowly got his food and mixed it while not taking my eyes off of him. I gave him his food and obsessively watched. "Why are you acting so weird?" she said, drilling me with her eyes. I thought to myself, a lot of fucking weird shit has just happened. I took my gaze off of Vito and returned it to Allison. She rolled her eyes at me and started making a nest on the couch. I didn't say anything. I honestly couldn't think of anything that would help at this point, and my heart was crushed by the thought of her hating me. It was still dark as the early morning started to creep in. As I laid there in the scratchy linen sheets, I couldn't help but to think about my suspicions of Vito. I gathered myself in preparation for the next encounter with Allison and slowly opened the bedroom door into the living room. There was absolute silence and darkness. I always kept the curtains drawn. Nosy neighbors are partial to these parts. As I rounded the corner, I saw the couch with the back of Allison's head peeking just over the armrest. As I walked closer to the couch, I felt the carpet give an unwelcome squish. At that moment, terrible thoughts bombarded me. I rushed over and dropped to my knees. In the video, Allison was fast asleep on the couch. I slowly entered naked from my bedroom, eyes blank. I walked over and stood above Allison for at least 15 minutes, just quietly watching her sleep, slightly swaying from side to side. Then I disappeared to the kitchen. Maybe I was sleeping walking. I don't remember ever having issues with this in the past. My hand tightened around the mouse when I returned from the kitchen with a contractor bag. I pulled at the bag and fanned it to fill it with air. Just as she started to stir from the rustling of the bag, I slipped it over her head and cinched it down. She jerked violently out of surprise, pushing back as we both forced the coffee table to the side. I watched as I leveraged all my weight, counteracting her struggle, pulling so tight that the plastic started to stretch over and around her face, lips opening and closing violently, like a fish gasping for water. She fought with all her might, arms and legs flailing frantically. With muffled hums she gasped for air that would never come, clawing at my chest with one last flurry of hope. Her flailing slowed and became more disorganized, like someone searching in the dark. The effort settled to a light twitching motion as the last electrical pulses made their way down her arms and legs. Then, relaxation. The whole time I moved as if in some kind of trance-like state. That wasn't me. I don't remember doing any of that. I held her affectionately, her head still wrapped in the thick plastic, pressed against my chest, like a mother would a child. I laid with her for some time before walking outside for a short moment and returning with a powered jigsaw.
Anyway, let's lighten the mood with something fun and... Nah, just kidding. It gets worse. Hit it.
The second note came a few days later, left on my kitchen counter. The sticky note was pink this time but still had the same distinctive loopy handwriting. Make sure to pack a lunch today. Again, I was unsettled. Now, any normal person might have reported this to the police, but during that time I was going through a major depressive spell. I had moved to a new city away from my friends and family, and had started a new job that I quickly realized I hated and didn't nearly pay enough. Home was lonely and work was soul-crushing. I had trouble enough getting out of bed each morning, let alone filing a report that I am sure the police would not take seriously. Even more stressed, I crumpled up the note. However, I ended up packing a small lunch for myself. Usually I didn't bother to put in the effort and just ate cafeteria food, but against my better judgment I fulfilled the wishes of the note. The notes continued throughout the following weeks. They would typically show up on random days, no more than 3 notes to a day. They were all left in obvious places in my apartment, all on sticky notes, and in that unfamiliar loopy handwriting. They began to grow more prophetic. Take I-80 today. There will be a bad accident on your way home. Janet is going to offer you some cookies at the office. Politely decline. They will give you food poisoning. Marie has been on a diet. Compliment her on her weight loss. She'll end up thinking well of you. Never do that again. I also valued the notes as a friend, as weird as that sounds. Or more like a guardian angel. Wherever they were from, they were always protecting me. Without them, the future was suddenly unknown, dangerous. Every time some mild annoyance popped up from that point, from bad traffic to stressful work situations and even a minor paper cut, I thought about how this all probably could have been avoided if I still had the notes. The next week, a bright green sticky note appeared on my bathroom mirror. I also managed to get a girlfriend somehow. Her name was Amanda. I met her at a pub when I was out with my buddies. The best part of all this is that for some reason, she seemed to actually be into me. She was gorgeous, way out of my league really, with long auburn hair that reached down to her back with soft brown eyes. Her laugh was lovely and the lemon-scented perfume she liked to wear was intoxicating. She was the type of girl you could chat with for hours and never run out of things to talk about. The relationship was still new, so I was trying not to plan our whole future together in my head, but she was so lovable it was hard not to. At some point I briefly thought about telling her about the notes. I've always wanted to tell someone about it but never really had anyone to tell up until now. I decided not to, however, afraid she might think I was crazy. There was no point so early in the relationship making her think I was a loon. Plus I was afraid the notes might stop again. If whoever was leaving them clearly didn't want me looking into them, how would they react if I shared what was happening with somebody? So at the moment I kept it to myself. My brain stopped for a moment. I read it once, twice, a third time, the words flashing in my brain but hitting an error every time. I set the note down and gulped, feeling nauseous. Anxiously, I went to my car and started driving. I tried not to think about the note but the words kept circling in my mind. Kill your girlfriend. The notes have never failed me before, and they were always in my best interest as far as I knew, which was admittedly not much. Maybe they were wrong this time. Maybe it wasn't meant to be taken literally. Kill could be a synonym for break up, right? My mind kept trying to make up poor excuses the whole way there. By the time I arrived, I was a sweaty mess and not a lick calmer. I pulled down my sun visor to check my face and a bright green sticky note fluttered out. I went cold. The notes had never appeared outside my house before. Hands shaking, I picked up the note and read it. I looked at my glove box wide-eyed. I did indeed keep a handgun in my glove box for safety purposes. I wanted to puke, to believe this wasn't happening. Again, I ignored the note and walked up to Amanda's house, trying to shake the message from my mind. She answered the door almost immediately after I rang the doorbell. Come in, she said, ushering me in. The inside of her house was cute and homely, and she fretted over me worriedly as she led me over to her kitchen table. She then took my hand and rubbed it comfortingly. I'm fine, sweetie. I probably have a stomach ache because I haven't eaten much today. I was looking forward so much for your spaghetti. Her smile returned again. I always loved how fast she smiled at things. Take your chair and bash her head in. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I stuffed the notes back in my left pocket. Oh, Jay, just some note from work I forgot was in my pocket is all. I said in a weird voice. Well, take a bite, silly. She said, gesturing towards my bowl. I'm so sorry. I really need to use your bathroom. Gary? What's wrong? You've been acting weird. When I found the right door, I went in and locked the door behind me. She kept knocking and knocking. Gary? Gary? Seriously, what's wrong with you? Is the stomach ache that bad? Talk to me, Gary, please. I backed up and against the bathroom wall, then sank down to the floor. I pulled out the 2 notes from my left pocket again, this time reading the second note. My heart sank.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
The Time I Flew a Box I Shouldn't Have, by Savage KD. The cold, dry wind whistled against the fuselage of my Cessna 185. I brushed my hand along the line of rivets, a nervous habit, making sure none were loose. I glanced at my watch. He's late, I murmured to myself. I finished my pre-flight, screwing the fuel caps on tight, when I heard the sound of dirt and rocks flinging from tires. I hopped down from the wing and saw it, a silver F-150 hauling ass across the ramp. What is it? I asked, walking closer. Don't know. Don't care, he said, pulling a thick envelope from his jacket. This is for you. The rest when you land at Miller Field. The weight of whatever the box is was astounding. It took both of us grunting and sweating to slide it into the back of the Cessna. It wasn't just heavy, it was a dead, dense weight that seemed to suck the energy out of you. When I slammed the cargo door shut, the whole plane seemed to groan. I leveled off at 10,000 feet, the engine settling into its familiar, comforting drone after putting it into cruise. The air was smooth. I checked my gauges, all in the green. I leaned back, letting the autopilot do its job, and watched the first stars begin to prick the deep violet sky. It was peaceful. For a moment, I almost forgot about the strange cargo sitting just a few feet behind my head. That's when my left wing dipped. It wasn't turbulence. It was a slow, heavy roll, like the plane had suddenly gained 1,000 pounds on one side. I grabbed the yoke, my knuckles white, and fought it back to level. The autopilot whined fighting me before I clicked it off. My heart hammered against my ribs. I scanned the instruments. Airspeed, altitude, engine temp all normal. I tapped the glass. The little blue and brown ball didn't budge. As I stared, my magnetic compass, floating serenely in its housing, began to drift. It swung past north, then west, and kept going, slowly, deliberately, until the big red S was pointing directly ahead. It was pointing forward, through the instrument panel, through the engine block. A cold sweat trickled down my spine. This wasn't an electrical failure. This was wrong. I forced my eyes away from the lying instruments and looked outside. I would fly by sight. Forget the panel. Just fly the plane. I had to get it out. The thought was insane: depressurize the cabin, muscle a cargo door open against a 120-knot wind, and somehow shove a crate of impossible weight out into the night, but it was the only thought that made any sense. The tires kissed the asphalt with a gentle chirp. It was the smoothest landing of my life. I taxied toward the far end of the field, where a single, unblinking light marked a derelict hangar. An old, black panel van with no windows was parked there, its engine off. As I cut my own engine, a figure stepped out of the van's shadow. It was a woman, tall and severe, dressed in a heavy canvas coat despite the mild night. She wore thick leather gloves. "The instruments?" she asked. Her voice was flat, devoid of curiosity. I was alone. The silence of the airfield was absolute. After a long moment, I climbed back into the cockpit, my body aching. I slumped into the pilot's seat and my eyes fell on the instrument panel. Everything was perfect. The attitude indicator was perfectly level. The compass pointed north. The GPS showed my plane sitting at the end of the runway at Miller Field, and the flight timer read 2 hours 17 minutes and 43 seconds. It was all real. I stared out into the empty night, the cash on the seat beside me feeling colder than any wind. I had flown the box. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to my soul, that I would never be the same.
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in a coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is Horror Slop.
Anthony Willis, by Daisy Dreamer. Anthony Willis is sitting in my chair today, a young man who is somehow skinny and fat at the same time and has greasy, unwashed hair. It crosses my mind that maybe I should have the chair cleaned when he leaves. This is his first time and he is still young, fresh, and stupid. Hopefully when he leaves my chair he will be knowledgeable and maybe, just maybe, have gained a little understanding. Yes. She's 21. Wow. That's the most defining thing he can think of about her. Her age. Not how long they've been married or even her name. Now that I think about it, he didn't mention his kid's name either. Or even if they're a boy or a girl. Of course I already know it's a girl because I read his file before he came in. Good. They're pretty good. Pretty good. So descriptive. And he actually broke eye contact with me to say that. This guy is a horrible liar. Thank God. He'll be so easy to break. Yes, but we're not here to talk about them, are we? He brings his eyes back to me and sits up when he realizes that the small talk is over and it's time to get down to business. We're here to talk about you. So how are they in relation to you? Do you ever have arguments? Or disagreements? Now I've got him. People who are on the brink of divorce or murder will more times than not tell me that their marriage is okay. I think that people have a very hard time revealing things like that to strangers. We've been conditioned, after all, to slap a band-aid on a bullet hole and a smile on our face during hardship. Especially marital strife. What do you argue about? Yeah, miserable. It can be actually. Ever since she got pregnant. He's still not looking at me. In fact, he is trying so hard to avoid eye contact he has his face pointed almost completely away from me. That painting of a plant on the wall must be extremely compelling because many of the people who have sat in that chair have spent quite a bit of time staring at it. Funny, because I always thought it was just a dumb painting of a plant. More fighting. A lot more fighting. Now he has gotten to the point where instead of spreading out he is starting to take up less space. He's gripping his thighs and sitting upright. What do you fight about? Try to be specific. He's moving his hands up and down his thighs now. God, he just can't stop fidgeting, can he? Do you help with the baby? Man, I try to, so now he's calling me man. Looks like I'm already breaking down walls. But it's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not gonna be able to make it stop crying. Oh, interesting, very interesting. So now the baby's in it. And she's breastfeeding, so it's not like I can help with that. And she never wants to just let it cry. She thinks it's our job to just jump up every time that it makes a sound and find out what's wrong. And I'm just, like, won't she get spoiled like that? The more upset that he gets, the more fragmented and confusing his sentences are. But, we've had one advancement. He referred to his baby daughter as she instead of it. So, would you say you have different parenting ideals than your wife does? Lose it? Because you love her? Because it fucking pisses me off. His reaction is almost explosive, but I've dealt with worse so I don't react. Because you love her? Yeah, I guess. He mumbles. Of course I do. I mean, she drives me batshit. But, she's still my kid. I just don't think she should be treated like the Queen of England, you know. Oh yeah, I know. I know all about you, Anthony Willis, and I know exactly how you feel about your wife and daughter. Does your wife call you names or put you down when you fight? Yeah. Lazy bastard. Fat ass. Dumb ass. Deadbeat. Like she thinks it's my fault I can't get a job in this shithole economy. I'm not applying myself. How long has it been since you held a job, Anthony? I already know the answer, but I ask anyways, just because I want to see him squirm. It's been, like, a while. Maybe a few months. Suddenly he's not looking at me anymore and he's leaning back in his seat like he thinks if he gets far enough away the question won't hit him. Or maybe that I won't hear him. But I don't have to hear him because I know why he's really sitting in my chair. So, does your wife work? No, of course not. She can't work 'cause of the baby, right? She quit her job, like, a couple months before the baby was born. Isn't that a load of shit? She just gets to prop her feet up all day while everyone rushes around her like she just gave birth to baby Jesus, and then they all scream at me to get a job. Like it's just that easy. Man, you don't even know. I know, Anthony, I know all about it, but I want you to tell me anyways. Her dad. The dude fucking hates me. Like, hates my guts. He is constantly telling her to leave me and he really wants to kick me out. Or kill me, probably. And then her mom is just a bitch. Just a straight up bitch. She doesn't like cussing. Doesn't like drinking. Or smoking. Or anything except for her grandbaby. She treats that baby like it came from God. But me? The man who made the baby. She treats like shit. Go figure. Do you fight with her parents? Yes and no. Like, they won't say anything to my face. They just say it to her. And then we end up fighting because of it. Who wouldn't? How angry. Well, sometimes, his voice is getting lower as well. I hear that baby. That damn baby screaming. And, I swear to God, I want to kill her. He's holding his hands in front of himself now with his fingers clenched. The tendons in his hands are sticking out and I can see veins under his transparently pale skin clearly. So what do you do when you're angry? I've already got him. He'll answer any question I ask him, but I still want to lead him into his own realization. Also, I'm not done toying with him yet. I throw things. Break things. Her mom doesn't like for me to get drunk, so sometimes I just throw empty bottles and break them when they're not home. I slam the doors, I punch the walls, kick the walls. I punched a hole in our bedroom door one time. I can't help it. It's really hard, you know. Being a man but being treated like a lil' kid. I just want a little fucking freedom. How does your wife react? When you go into a rage? Oh, yeah, no, all scared and shit. Like she actually thinks I'm gonna hurt her. She gets all freaked out. One time she told me that if I laid a hand on her then her dad would shoot me. Dude, at this point, that fat, old man can go ahead and do it. It would be a fucking blessing right now. And what about the baby? Have you ever hurt her? Like the wall? Or the door? Or what about the lamp? Do you sometimes smash the lamps? Sometimes, yeah. It's like I just want some fucking sleep. And sex. This is really hard to admit, especially for a man. But, yet no, we haven't fucked since before she gave birth. She doesn't understand because for her it's not as big a deal. She doesn't even take one single second to think about how that affects me. Especially since I can't really jerk it more than maybe once a day since we have absolutely no privacy. I have to hide in the bathroom like I'm a kid again. It's humiliating. By this point I'm feeling borderline rage. But I've learned how to hide it very well. My face remains practically expressionless, although underneath I'm tensing up for the kill. Think about the last time you argued with your wife. What was it about? At first it was because I wanted her to actually show me that she loved me, you know. Like put the baby down for 2 goddamn seconds and pay attention to me, for once. Oh, she didn't like that. Of course she didn't like that. How dare I imply that I'm a human being with needs, right? Not exactly. I'm just a physical person, you know. Love languages and shit. Well, I'm physical. I like to be touched. You know, initiate a kiss or something every now and then. If it leads to sex it does, but it doesn't have to. But, at the very least she could at least try. She would always complain that if she tried it would hurt, but, like, how the fuck is she going to know if it will hurt this time if she won't at least try? Once you get this guy talking he could go on forever. I could get him to spill his entire life story to me right now if I wanted to. But, I don't. I just want one thing and I'm getting closer and closer. What happened next? Man, angry doesn't even cut it. I was pissed. I think I did leave. Maybe I went to a bar or something. I must have gotten real shit-faced because I can't remember anything. I went home. His poor, stupid brain is going into overdrive now. I think for the first time he's actually starting to question where he is. And maybe who the hell I am. But there's no time for that, and he wouldn't understand yet anyways. I have to keep him on track. We're nearing the breaking point. Her parents were still gone. I was really happy about that. I couldn't stop thinking about how lucky I was. But then I was really mad. Why were you mad? Yeah, I think so. He was still looking at his hand like he just couldn't comprehend. I can't let him finish the puzzle yet. He needs to put the pieces together in order. I told her that if I was going to jail she was going to the hospital. So she fucking runs like a little bitch into her parents' room and locks the door. I can hear the dumb bitch through the door. She's on the phone saying, "Oh God, he's gonna kill me, help me, oh God." I'm mad, so I start kicking the door. I'm really only trying to scare her, but then the door breaks. And next thing I know there's a gun pointed at my face. She's pointing a gun at me, but she has the nerve to call the cops on me. I wasn't even afraid, though. I mean, I knew she wouldn't do it, yet no. There's no way she has that much courage. So I just start walking forward. And she's walking backwards. And crying. And saying, "Don't make me shoot you." So you know what I did? I walked right up to her, I took the gun, and I held it to my chest. And I just said, "If you're gonna do it, fucking do it." And you know what she did? She threw the fucking thing on the ground. And then she's just crying and saying, "Please don't hurt me. That bitch was gonna shoot me." Can you believe it? He's no longer on the line between crying and laughing, he's playing hopscotch with it. But she didn't shoot you. She couldn't do it. The game is over. Anthony Willis will be leaving my chair and taking his filthy, greasy hair with him. He won't be leaving a better man, it's simply too late for him. But maybe I can rid the world of his stench once and for all. Maybe I can properly finish the job he left half done. What did you do to your wife, Anthony? I was just so scared. No accident. What did you do? I think he's rocking now. The truth is fighting him hard. It's fighting to come out and be free, and I think that very soon he will be defeated by it. I think I shot her. My wife, her. Oh, God, what's happening? Where am I? Who are these people? He tries to rise from my chair only to find that he is bound, but not by chains. Why can't I leave? Why can't I stand up? I can't say it. No, Anthony, you are going to leave. I pull a lighter out of my pocket, click it, and produce a small flame. Anthony seems to go even paler when he sees it. When I burn these items you will be released from this world, to go wherever it is you will go. That's for you to find out, Anthony. I'm still alive, so I don't know. I bring the flame towards the pictures in front of me, but he cries out again and I allow him his last words. I don't know, Anthony, why don't you send me a postcard? I like the pictures. I know the couple in the room with me can hear the screaming because they both jump and grow a shade paler. One of them actually screams out loud and acts like they are going to bolt for the door. To my surprise, they find enough courage to stay. I know that I was terrified as well the first time that I heard the wailing death screams of an unwilling spirit being forcefully ripped from this world. But, now I find a small amount of pleasure. The world could always use less Anthony Willises. Of course, it's the most horrible people who seem to cling to life the hardest. It might be because they are so terrified of what awaits them on the other side, or maybe it's because they just want to inflict as much pain as possible. Either way, it's not my job to know. It's just my job to get rid of them. Not a job I chose, but the job that was chosen for me. The next few moments are silent except for the haunting echoes of Anthony's passing. The couple finally look towards me. One's face is tear-streaked and they are trembling, the other steps forward and addresses me while never letting go of the other's hand. Is it gone? They ask in a whisper that is barely more than a breath. Yes, he's gone. He won't be back, either. Of course, if I were you, I would still keep my eye out for any other occurrences. While uncommon, this was a traumatic death involving more than one person, so I would keep an eye out for the wife just in case. The wife? The one he killed? Their question reminds me that they could only actually hear my side of the conversation. Yes, it's unlikely that she is still here, and even if she is, I don't think she would actually cause you any problems. But if there are problems, don't hesitate to reach me again. My assistant will get with you about that. Is there anywhere you can stay for the night? Possibly tomorrow night as well. His presence is gone, but there is a remaining mist and bad odor that will likely persist until at least tomorrow evening. Possibly the next morning even. Some people have found this smell to be overbearing, and some have even had negative side effects due to it. Nothing too serious: headaches, nausea, lightheadedness, moodiness. Finding another place to sleep for the next 2 nights would be safer. I don't know what to say. I don't understand this at all. But thank God for people like you. What would have happened if we hadn't called you? I mean, could it have gotten worse? Well, if you had waited too long, I wouldn't have even been able to help. I'm sorry for your family's misfortune, and I hope you are able to move past this quickly. The children may take a little time, of course. The younger they are, the better they seem to be able to remember it for some reason. Even the baby.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I get it. Can I eat now?
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon, and leave a comment telling us what story made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same dat crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.